we had made our way through this liturgy template, which is for St. Constantine and Helen. Just to review, we figured that we're going to use this instance of it because it falls on day 106. We went through all these lines. And then last time we just touched on the epistle and the gospel readings, okay? So now I'm going to dig into the epistle reading. Notice now that we're going into a block template called LE, which stands for lectionary. And we click there. All right. So specifically for the 21st, we are using this section here, all these lines here. Okay. And that means that the epistle reading will be the one indicated by the Mineon in honor of the saints. So let's go back there and look at that. So epistle, it says Mineon. Gospel, it says daily. All right. So those are the two main choices that we have. But let's dig down into what real choices we have for epistle. I'm going to undo here. Okay. So if we, if you were thinking of, you put epistle in, you say, okay, what can I possibly find or select? Well, it's going to be easier if I just go to the template. Answer. All right. So remember, line 1607 is where we're going to talk specifically, but let's, I'm going to collapse everything and look at this block template. Okay. So this template, as you can see, has a section for epistle, gospel, prophetologion, which means the prophecies, especially during Lent and or, when there's prophecies at Vespers or whatever it is. And this is prophecies when there's a hierarch. All that changes is who is reading it. It'll say, hierarch reads instead of reader. Okay, that's the only difference. So, and then these other little sections here, the prayer before the gospel. When we need it, I'll just call upon it. It's a section. And this other section is called prayer before the gospel with a H. Again, that means a hierarchical. All that's going to do is change who, the actor. There's a section here called if previously skipped. And all that does, well, we'll get to that. So we will open now the epistle section. So when, we were creating the template, you got to LE.01 epistle, and then we select which one we want. The very easy selection was Mineon. That's all we needed. All right, that's the one we picked. But there are all these other sort of selections that are on that same sort of level. The other main one would be the daily, from the daily cycle, and it computes based on the relative ID of where we are on the cycle. There are, here's the Mineon one, and it computes. Mineon Alt 1, that's for alternative commemorations like St. Porphyrios, who's not, it's not the first one in the Mineon, it's the extra stuff. So it's going to look for it in a different list, but it's based on the date, And then let's go through these other ones just so we know. So there's Christmas, Epistle Christmas. So these are the Saturdays and Sundays before and after Christmas. Those are specific epistle readings. So I've got them blocked out here, so that if it's in December and it's a Saturday, one of the templates will say, say it's December 23rd. And one of the options will be if it's a Saturday. If it's a Saturday, then use for epistle, it will be very specifically the Saturday before Christmas. And that's the one I'll pick. Okay. Or the Sunday of the forefathers, or, Saturday after Christmas, or the Sunday after Christmas. Is that clear, or do you need me to show you one of those December templates?
Seems clear.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
seems clear.
Okay, so again, I built those out so that we could just reference them very quickly. Okay. Something similar is here in this section with the cross. We have, and in September, we have the Saturday before the cross, Sunday before the cross, the Saturday after the cross, and the Sunday after the cross. So in order to be able to, stick those into the appropriate instance of a date. So, like if it's September 16th, when it's a Saturday, use Saturday after the cross as opposed to the daily one. Okay.
Hey, Father Seraphim,
Yep.
can I just reflect something to you and see if I'm understanding correctly?
Yes. Yes.
This is more broader to kind of how Aegis functions. So what we're looking at here with the LE, basically it's see, because I'm kind of used to how Doxa works with different templates being different files. What we're kind of looking at is you've built out the different ways in which the epistle lectionary will work for different times in the year. But when you have a dated service, that will call up only one of these options, right? You'll have to specify it'll be underscore 01 underscore epistle underscore underscore, and then that's where you start to specify which of these different sections are being called up in subsections.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay.
So
okay, so this is just kind of where they live.
yes.
And in a dated service, you call up the very specific sections and subsections.
Correct. For May 21st, we will call up the one that I've highlighted here, Mineon, and that will calculate what date it is and then go to the one, specifically that's for, and we'll drill down into there so you can see that.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So this cross one is used in September. Daily is used always when it's not anything else. It will use the daily, cycle. Epiphany is similar. It's used in January or December, the Saturday or Sunday before Epiphany, the Saturday, Sunday after Epiphany, something. And so that period, from after Epiphany to the beginning of the Triodion, I haven't figured out the actual logic behind it. And I know there's a priest in Crete who has laid out the rubrics, till 2040 something. Okay. And I've asked to receive his work, in which case then we'll have it all till 2040, what the Patriarchate's going to do, So what happens during that time is sort of like the daily cycles somewhat over or suspended. There's a lot of saints, that are commemorated them, but if it's like a daily reading, it's going to go pick some that were missed because of using, like the Saturday before the cross. So that Saturday, or where's the Saturday before Christmas overrode that particular reading of Luke or the epistle or whatever the epistle was. So it's going to go and grab those that were missed, those that were suppressed or whatever, and put them there. Okay. Now, how they pick which ones they pick, I don't know. I look ahead, and so I've just this is just where I've put them for now. Okay. And every year I do that, in order to accommodate, whatever the rubrics are. If I ever figure out what the logic was, maybe I could create an algorithm or whatever it is, a logical way of doing it. That, so that's going to be something that's going to need to be done. If I can get that material from the priest in Crete, then I can, create these for the next 20 years, and who cares after that,
So, Father, are you saying like the systematic Typicon doesn't have those rules? And
correct.
so where is the priest in Crete getting them from? The Patriarchate?
Well, no, I mean, somebody has to make the decision of you know, he's been assigned by the Patriarchate to work out the rubrics you know, in order to apply the rubric book, you know, to real time. And so he's done that, and then he on the basis of his information, the so-called imerologion is published. So the imerologion is the unpacking, is the application of the typicon to specific dates. Okay. So when it comes to this period between Epiphany and the beginning of Triodion, there always is this, you know, picking up readings that were missed, picking up reading, you know, well, which one goes where? I've tried to find a rule, I've tried to find a pattern, and you know, you can just kind of lose your mind in it. And if there's you know, if there's a rule that Father George, his name is Father George, if there's a rule that he uses, great, but it's going to vary from year to year because of what was missed. One year is not the same one that was missed the last, you know, the previous year or the next year, whatever. So he might have some standard principles, but let's just say, even if it's just up to him, I mean, it has to be up to someone, right? Let's just say it's up to him or up to someone to decide what those readings are going to be for that time. Well, that is, in the worst case scenario, it's not that it's bad, but it's not arbitrary. But let's just say it's not something that our program can work out automatically.
Mhm.
So this is going to be, I am, you know, flagging this for you as, you know, as a digital content, you know, administrator or whatever. You know, you're going to have to watch those things in January, and then fix those templates have to be adjusted every year. The January, from January 6th through the beginning of Triodion. January, I guess from the new year, you know, I mean, like it starts January 1st and the pre-feast and the this, that, and the other. So January, especially after, January through beginning of Triodion.
Thought about not specifically this, but what if in Doxa we have an Irmologian page where you enter what the readings will be. And we have generic templates that are able to work, or the code is able to work from that and select templates.
Yeah, you mean Imerologion. We should probably give it
Imerologian. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would, and anyone, you know, can fill it out for whatever jurisdiction it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of it'd be nice if we could abstract it from the templates so the templates were always reusable, but behind the covers, it was driven off of that.
So that would be a task. Again, it would be the task of somebody to set those. That same somebody is probably are the people on this call, you know, and it's probably going to be the same person that is going to make the templates, right? The same person who's going to fill in that form or that page is going to be the same person that's going to make the templates. But you're saying, yeah, let me
I think how a RID works. It'd be similar in concept to a RID, but it would be based on what information it extracts from the Imerologian.
of a given year, right?
Yeah, for it have to be year by year. I'm just put it in the back of your mind and chew on it sometime, you know?
Yeah.
It would be nice if we could abstract that out.
Or we could wire it, you know, for the next 20 years, once if I get that material and say, this is what it's going to be. And so when it's that date, that year, you know, that's the one it's going to pull. But so like here is January 8th. Okay. And when it's a Sunday, it's going to use the Sunday after Epiphany. All right. When it's a weekday, I put here this Wednesday, but if it's a Saturday, it uses Sunday after Epiphany for the epistle, okay? But if it's so in 2023, here it is, section Epistle, Epiphany. I mean, that's what I called it, Epiphany, and then whichever one, okay? So you're saying maybe we should have one that says, post Epiphany, and then it goes over to, a selector and calculates which one. And we could do that if we knew which ones they were. I think I could do that. I could use the engine that you have here. And can we say when year is? Do we have that? Or
I think we do, but I could check that. But I mean, it's almost like we could create a new thing that was equivalent to a RID, but it's, it's a HID, meaning consult the Irmologian and then compute what you're going to retrieve.
So I'm just trying to see, we can say
You need a win. Do you need a win in front of it?
Yeah, when date is. I know that we can do month and day.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know what you mean, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Use something.
Anyway, let's think about it for the future.
Right.
And
so that
because if it's in a user interface, it would be easier to maintain. And also someone who's in a different jurisdiction wouldn't be using the things from the priest in Crete. So that gives the flexibility to handle everybody.
Sure. So just make sure then, I guess, double check and see if there's a when, if the when or if date is can include a year.
Okay.
Because or just if year is, because year is one of the LDPs, isn't it?
Yeah. I think. I mean, you can go ahead and I'll check right now while we're talking, while you're looking.
So that's what we did here. Okay, so I that it's that period in December, in January. So that's what these Epiphany ones. It's the Saturday and Sunday, before and after Epiphany, and the other ones that are within that up until this for Epiphany, it's up until January 14th, because that's the leave taking of Epiphany. Okay. After the leave taking of Epiphany, then something else. Then we have.
So I have an answer.
Okay, what's the answer?
It can be an exact date, or it can be a year.
Just year naked, or full?
It can be year naked. Yeah.
And it can be a full date with month, day, and year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or just month, day, also, right?
Yeah, because I think a date has the years optional, and we just default to the current.
Good. All right. Good. All right. Then hierarchical is yes.
Sorry, what's the correct spelling for Emerologion?
HEMERO, Emerologion.
Okay, thank you.
And it's one of your folders. It's one of the books, I think. Okay. Well, maybe not.
You call them liturgical guides, I think. Would that be the equivalent or not?
That's a different thing. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there a book called Emerologion? No, Orologion.
Oh, there is. Oh no, that's Irmi. That's Irmi. Never mind.
The Emerologion is, it's a secondary resource. Like I said, It takes the typicon and it applies it to a particular year, and it changes every year. So it's the typicon, which was something we almost built. I almost built it, here in the templates. I do have the liturgical guide that has to be created every year, though. That doesn't happen automatically. That happens, that. So anyway, hierarchical. This simply means all of these categories, but when there's a hierarchy. So if we open that, it's basically restates all the categories, Christmas, cross, Epiphany, all that stuff, but when there's a hierarchy. Okay. There may have been a better way to do that, but basically that's how I've done it throughout the templates. Is there a section in every section that says hierarchical, and it accommodates the use of a hierarchy. Do you understand that? Not if you understand. Okay.
Yes.
Then Holy Father. So this is for those Sundays in July and October when it's the Sunday of the Holy Fathers, but that floats. So in July and between the 11th or whatever it is, the 11th and 18th of July, all those templates, there will be when it is Sunday, then that instance we will call this particular epistle reading or gospel reading. Is that clear? Yes.
Yes.
And the same thing goes for the October instance of that. Okay. All right. Mineon, that's what we're using now, and we'll talk about it. Vespers is if there's an epistle at Vespers. And basically this one is for Epiphany and Christmas. Okay. Whether or not it's a liturgy, there's an epistle reading, right? On the eve of Christmas Eve and Epiphany Eve. And then this one computes any epistle readings that there might be at Vespers, a Vesper service of the Triodion. This is specific an epistle reading for the deceased. So that's like, if it's Saturday of the Souls, or if you ever need, specifically the epistle reading for the deceased. So some of these readings are found in the back of the epistle book, where it has for various occasions, for the deceased, for a martyr, for a monastic. I built out some of them. So you see them there. Okay. That's what those are for. Theotokos 1, there's various epistle readings used for the Theotokos. So I just gave them a 1, and a 2. So one is used on September 8th. Another one is used on, why does that have 8-1? September 8th. The other one is used on November 21st. And then if those are used somewhere else, you just invoke it as Theotokos 1 or Theotokos 2. Pre-Triodion. Okay, that's something like that Epiphany thing. So pre-Triodion. Okay, look at that. So in that period after the leave taking of Epiphany, so that's after starting with January 15th until the beginning of Triodion. And that will be more or less depending on the year, right? You understand that?
Yeah.
But here is where now the Typicaris, Father George or whoever, is going to start grabbing from the ones that we didn't do for whatever reason, because something, was a feast day of a saint, and so the daily one wasn't done or whatever. It seems like the rubric would like to say all the Bible readings at some point. And if we missed it, 6 months ago, we're going to bring it here. We missed it a month ago, we're going to bring it here. Okay. So what I've done is I've named them as, like the 31st week of, I think it's Matthew. I'm pretty sure. So I've named them so that when Father George, when the Emerologion says, do the epistle from the 31st week. Well, epistles are not Matthew or Mark. Epistles are just numbered straight through. Okay, so if it says, do the epistle from the 31st week, Thursday from the 31st week, I've got it there. If it's Friday from the 31st week. And these happened over the course of 2 or 3 years. So that's why I've got the ones there. I don't know if it's going to go like Wednesday of the 31st week, if it's going to go beyond the ones that are there, but that's the ones that are there to easily, and I call on that section just because I see, in the Emetologion, it says on that day, do that. So on January, we can go to January. Let's go to January 16th. Okay. So that's 2 days after the leave taking of Epiphany. And in this case, it tells us just use the ones from the Mineon. So it was a non-issue. January 17th, that's Saint Anthony. 18th is Saint Athanasius. 19th is Macarius. So there's a lot of, 20th is Ephemius, I think. So there's a lot of saints in there, so that the saints, days take. But if we go to, I do want to show you. So if maybe the 22nd. No, that's a Mineon also. January 23rd. That's a Mineon. January 24th. Okay, here we are. So January 24th, when it's a weekday, do you see that? So I had to look and see, it says, well, on a weekday, use the epistle from the Mineon, but for the gospel, so the same thing is whether it's epistle gospel is maybe a similar, it's a similar thing. Pre-triodion, and then a specific, it tells you which one to use, but that changes from year to year, okay? Because it's getting ones from who knows what we did do or didn't do. So if Michael, if that's a thing we can work out, like you said, in a Emetologion lectionary settings or preferences or whatever we want to call that, for each year. Mm-hmm. I will request again to get that information and see if at least we can set it for the GOA for the next 20 years, and then whatever. So do you understand what's happening there? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So that's.
Would you be going to? Oh, here we are again. Yeah. I just take a screenshot.
So these are. I just built these to be convenient there, so that on the in the template itself, I didn't have to go into search for stuff. So these are reusable. Actually, they're used, from year to year. It's just that they're on different days. Okay. So when I start working in January or February, of 2024, I'll see what the Emetologion, indicates, and then I'll. On specific dates, it'll be different from what it was last year. I'll just have to go.
Could you expand that?
What
section? Just open that section, any section, so we can see.
Oh, any one of these? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll have.
And the lesson. I want to see the lesson. Okay.
It does what I don't want it to do, but it does it anyway. It goes to the epistle book. Okay, we talked about this before, but it goes to the template for the actual epistle book, and it opens, book, apostolos. There's your book, BK, AP is apostolos, MC is movable cycle, part 4. So I tried to create templates that imitate the apostolos book itself, and the apostolos book, the epistle book, seems to be divided into 4 or 5 parts, sections, or periods, or whatever it is. And this is period 4, and it goes from the 26th the Sunday. Remember, the epistles go from week 1 to 30 something until 37. Until I think 37 is the beginning of Triodion or something like that. There's no of Matthew or Luke or restarting of the number. It's a continuous number, and there's no loop and jump in the epistle readings. It's just sequential, 1 through 37, whatever it is. But it's divided into, I don't know, four periods or whatever. So this is period 4, and it goes from Sunday of the 26th Sunday, and then here's 27, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so forth. Week 27, week 28, 29, 8, and it will go until week 34. Anyway, so that's what it's pointing to. Each of these days has a section called the book and a section called the lesson. So in the EP book is the whole dialogue thing of the reading is from St. Paul's book to the Ephesians or whatever. So when you see, if you go to the DCS now and you look at, that's what we're going to, we'll get to that in a second, okay? So that's what these readings are, the pre-Triodion readings. And then Triodion is all the Saturdays and Sundays typically that have probably this, the ones that are specific, the Triodion dates that have something that's outside of the normal cycle, like the first Sunday of Lent has a specific epistle reading, maybe, and the third Sunday of Lent has a specific epistle reading, as does the Akathist. So those are here. And then text only is everything much like hierarchical. Text only is used for these readings, again, the same ones, but stripped of the dialogue stuff. And that's why I wanted you to open the same day, May 21st, to the variable parts of the liturgy. And you'll notice epistle reading is just the text. It's got the prokimenon, it's got the chapter and verse, but it doesn't have the deacon's part, it doesn't have the reader's part, it doesn't say anything, it's just text. That's what this section is here. Text only. It means all the epistle readings, but stripped of the dialogue for when you need that. Okay? All right. So now let's look at an actual epistle reading. So in our, back to our template, we had Mineon. Okay, so we'll go back to where we were. Now we're going to open the Mineon section. Most readings will have a title section, a subsection for title, a section for prokimenon, and a section for the lesson. And the reason, okay, sometimes it's divided that way. So let's look at title, prokimenon, lesson. So this is let's look at the Divine Liturgy of May 21st. All right. Note after the Dynamis, Holy God, Holy Mighty. Then it says the readings. You see that? Yes?
No. Where are we looking?
Go to the DCS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Which one? Just the
May 21st, the liturgy.
With the variable, with the complete liturgy, or just the variables?
The complete liturgy.
Okay.
All right, and scroll down to after Holy God, we get to where it says the readings. It's about a third of the way down.
Yeah.
Okay. So where it says the readings, that's this line here. Okay, that's where that comes from. So by entering in the May 21st template, by virtue of entering Epistle Mineon, with with one underscore, we get the readings, we get the epistle, that's this title, and then we get the title of that epistle reading, which is for the equals to the apostles. See all that?
Mhm.
Has to come from somewhere. So that section is called the title of the epistle reading. And so now we're going to drill, what is that inserting? It's inserting a rid. Yeah, well, it's not a, it's inserting another template, which I called a rid epistle. So when it comes to these are other helpful, it's kind of like a selector. So this template is under templates, under lectionary logic. Okay. So here's epistle minown and epistle daily. So we're in the epistle minown. So the logic, so yeah, all that logic has to be somewhere. How do we find the line that says for the equals to the apostles? Okay, so we look here. Here's what it's looking at. When the date is, and we just scroll down to May 21st. And there it is. Title equals to the apostles. Okay. So that line will work for any date that actually has an epistle, that any date that has a calendar, you look at the epistle book after the daily reading, after the daily cycle, there's that section from the Minoan, right? And so all those dates that have a commemoration that has a specific epistle reading for that commemoration, that's where you find here. So here's the epistle reading. I call it the designation, but that's where the title is coming from. Okay. And then in another section in this, it's going to be the book, where it says later down, it's going to say the reading is from the Acts of the Apostles. Okay. And that's here. And again, it's going to look up the date, May 21st. All right. So where you see in the liturgy, where you scroll down a little bit, and it says reader, the reading is from the Acts of the Apostles. You see that? That's this line here. Okay. And I'll show you where that comes from in a second. And then a third section here in this is the actual lesson. So the lesson has the chapter and verse, the book and chapter and verse, and the text of the lesson. Okay, you see on your DCS where it says Acts 26:1, 12 through 20, and then the reading itself, right? That comes from here where it says epistle lesson, and we scroll down to May 21st, and it's here, and it's 2 lines, one for the chapter verse, and the other one for the lesson itself. Now we'll drill into these things to see where they actually go, right? So we're back up to for the equals to the apostles. And that looks no further than this lookup, goes to the date, and here we have on May 20, if it's May 21st, use title, small center, that's why you see it in small red letters, right? Smaller red letters. And the actual title equals to the apostles, and that comes from the constants file that is language and is language specific. It's your translator or whatever language specific titles that are reusable. And in this case, for the equals to the apostles in whichever language you have. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we go to the next part of it, which is the book. And we scroll down to May 21st. And this is the line that says, not deacon, let us be attentive, because that's not specific to a date. All right. The prokimenon, we'll go to that in a minute, but now we're at the line where it says the reading is from the Acts of the Apostles. Okay, so the prokimenon is somewhat associated with the reading, but the things that are associated with the reading specifically are the title, the name of the book, calling out the name, the reading, and then the chapter, verse, and the reading. The prokimenon, while it comes in between, that has a different way of looking it up and finding it. So that's why I have these separated into 3 sections. Title. That's why it's separated into title, prokimenon, lesson, so that we can insert the prokimenon, in between the title and the lesson. So the title and the lesson are actually, notice how they are going to this rid, epistle, mineon, rid, epistle, book, and rid, epistle, mineon. Okay, that we need that specific logic. Prokimenon, because it is from the Psalter, that's calculated separately, right? So now back to here. So now we want to find, where do we get the reading is from the Acts of the Apostles? And that's this line here. And in Greek, we leave it blank because in Greek, it starts with praxeon ton apostolon to anagnosma. Okay? In Greek, we don't have a first section and then the name of the book and then to anagnosma, but we have nothing, the name of the book, and then something. Whereas in English, and I don't know what it is in Spanish or other languages, okay? In English, we will have this key A, will have the reading is from the, and then the name of the book, and then nothing. So in the English libraries, key, epi O1A has a value, but key epi O1B has no value, but it's the reverse in Greek. So we have to have both in order to accommodate both languages. And so that's what we have here. A, in Greek, it's nothing. And then we have very specific LE, EP, ME, M, we have mineon 5, day 21. All right. We will find that string, and then it ends with, in Greek, to anagnosma, in English, nothing. All right. So now we'll go to this file. All right. So this file has opened. This is the actual reading from the epistle book for specifically for May 21st. So let's go find that. That is in the Greek library. It's under the book, under the section Lectionary. Okay, Lectionary, Apostolos, not daily, not general, mineon, and then by date. And any epistle that has any date that has an epistle reading will have, a file here. And the algorithm, the program knows to look, when it sees LE, it knows to look at something, looks for lectionary, and in this case ME, it looks for the date. If it says LEEP MC, which would be the daily reading, then it knows to look for which day of the movable cycle are we, and then find it. So much like anything else that's related to the mineon, when we do a rid, we're looking for a mineon, we're looking for a date. In this case, we're looking, again, the program will look for a lectionary entry for the date. Okay, and the reason we don't put these in the mineon folder, the Minaeon, like we would, is because the Minaeon is translated by somebody else, and the Bible is the Revised Standard, or whichever. It's a whole other world of translators. It may be the same person in Spanish, okay, but in English, for example, and in Greek, it's all the same. But for English, we had to accommodate the various versions of the Bible that are not the translator of the liturgical stuff. Okay. It turns out that I think, Father Ephraim Lash may have his own translation of the epistles and the gospel readings. And the Greek text is obviously just one, language, but that's not the case in English and not the case in the GOA. So in the GOA, we had to be able to accommodate the various translators of liturgical texts, like you saw, the public, brings them together. And then we think there's a setting in the preferences that says which version of the scriptures we're going to use. So here in the GoArch, here are the preferences in the templates. The GoArch preferences, version under version, for here we have it, lectionary for the epistles for Greek. First, go see if the GOA has a specific way it wants the Greek done. If not, and it typically doesn't, then we'll default to the regular Greek. And for English, go to ENUS Public, which for the most part is going to be RSV. Okay.
Brother Seraphim?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that that's how it would be for the epistle and the gospel, for the readings. But what about, for example, psalm verses that are interspersed between the antiphons?
Right. So those are,
would those live within their specific Bible translation? Because
yes.
I does that
Yes.
setting for you to select which one also apply to those psalm verses?
Yes. So don't forget that there's the public.
Right.
We've even applied the public to the lectionary. We could have not done that and used these fallbacks, but since we decided public is going to give us more flexibilities here in the public project, here in public, it's got its lectionary folder. And it's got the apostolos, and the Minaeon. And you'll notice that if we open one of these, it's pointing to RSV. Okay. And literally all the New Testament for the GOA is going to point to RSV in the public for the New Testament. When it comes to, you said the Psalm verses, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the full Psalter, and it's pointing to Saint Athanasius Academy for them, and so does the Minaeon verses or whatever. Anything that's from the Psalter is going to point to the Saint Athanasius Academy Septuagint.
So is that controlled by the setting that you showed us that said Psalter?
It's yes. Back in the day, Michael had made it, where's our preferences version, so that we could set preferences for where the epistle would be, and now it's just public. Where the gospel, would come from, and again, it's public, and where the prophetologion would come from, again, that's public. And the Psalter down here, liturgical, all the liturgical text, and then down here, where
so what you have highlighted right now, that's going to control where the Aegis looks to get those psalm verses that I mentioned.
any file that begins with PS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in Doxa too. That's in the layouts.
I guess I had forgotten that there was a Psalter section. I just
yeah. So, I'm not sure that these need to continue this way, to have all these fallbacks, but that's how it was built originally.
Well,
Yeah,
it
I
gives
see
you
the Psalter
flexibility. I
section.
mean,
Yeah, I mean, we're saying, I mean, here's where it says liturgical texts go to public. So that's what governs that. Okay. So Michael had sort of broken it out into the Psalter, into Old Testament readings, into Gospels readings, and to epistle readings. And for our purposes, they all have the same settings.
but if you open up ENU as public, you'd see they were pointing to different places.
They could point, especially in the liturgical, but the same would apply. The same would apply to any of the readings. So that, let's say in Spanish, if some one translator has translated part of the New Testament, and someone else, you're using someone else's for the epistles and whatever, you would take care of that in your public file.
What is the difference between V1 and V2 in each of those?
One is first go look at something, and then if there's nothing there, go to the default.
Well, no, what the V1s and V2s are,
Oh yeah,
Jesse, is in ages, you're only allowed two versions,
that's
two
right.
columns. In Doxa, you can have up to three, of course.
V1 is
But
Greek, V2 is English for me.
yeah, it's
Oh,
what
that's
library
what
are you using, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see.
Here it means version. Here means not version of the Bible, but version means
The column,
Right.
yeah.
column in the generated, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. So I could, if I changed those, I could do English. If I said version 1 would be somebody's English and version 2 would be someone else's English, I could do that. And when it comes to Doxa, we could do Greek and any other two versions. I'm wondering, we're going to leave it V. Are we going to, I mean, you don't want to change that to Lang or anything like that, do you?
You don't even see that. It's a totally different
Yeah.
thing. It's actually layouts are done with a visual editor.
I'm just
You
saying
actually see
for consistency of terminology. I mean, we use Lang and what do we use? In templates, we use Lang, right? Lang1, Lang1, and Lang2.
Oh yeah, that's inconsistent. You're right.
Something to think about, but that's where that is. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So where were we? Does that answer your question about
Yes.
Jesse?
Yeah.
All right. So here is, like I said, here's the May 21st epistle reading. And because it's named LE Lectionary, EP epistle. What part of the lectionary? It could be either it could be EP or GO or something else. ME means date, noun, and then it's very specific. May 21st. Okay. All right. That's what's happening with this RID. It's not a RID, but anyway, I called it RID epistle lesson me noun because it functions much like a RID. It's got all these RIDs in it, basically. Down here. It functions like a RID, but none of these are RIDs, actually. These are SIDs. These, but it functions as a, do you understand? All right. Maybe I should change that from RID to something else. But, because, I mean, is that confusing? I mean, this was back in my early days of writing code and said, oh, it functions like a RID. I should call it a RID, all right. It's not really. And maybe, it could be a selector, it could be a selector. All right. So we're back here again. So we did epistle mineon. We talked about where the designation comes from. We talked about where the book. So now when you look at the DCS, at the full liturgy, we see the reading here, the epistle here. We saw where the title is coming from, and the reason why we put it there is because it makes more sense at the beginning of the reading, although it's. And then we have the deacons. Then we have now the prokimenon section, and the deacon says, let us attend, let us be attentive, right? You see that? That's deacon, proskomen, let us be attentive. And then reader, and then the reader says something about the prokimenon, right? So he says, the reader recites the prokimenon, and in the Greek practice, we don't say prokimenon except the Old Testament readings in Lent, but for the epistle reading, we don't say prokimenon in the fourth, whatever it is. No, it's just there as information in red, and that's what this line does. And then this line inserts his proclamation went forth into all the earth, verse, the heavens declare the glory of God. That's what these two lines do, okay? We can go there. Let's go there. So now we go to this is a different, now this is lectionary epistle prokimenon mineon. And that's, in here, right there. So again, we look for May 21st, and there it is, prokimenon. That's where we get prokimenon, mode 8, or Plato the fourth. And where do we get the Psalm 18 from? How does it know that for May 21st, we need Psalm 18? So here's where that file where we took snippets of the Psalter that we needed for various occasions. So we've got the full Psalter, and then we have we have liturgical verses, we have mineon verses. That's what we're looking at now. So this is called mineon verses, and it starts from January 1st, and anywhere that, verses could possibly be used, whether it's in the aposticha, at Vespers, and we have verses there, right? Or it's at the prokimenon, or wherever. And that was something I, explored. I didn't just copy from the, what the epistle book had, but the epistle book has a lot, but it doesn't have, for example, the aposticha verses. And those were all necessary. So if we go down here to May 21st, we can see what's available here. Okay, so here May 21st has got the aposticha verses that we need. Okay, that's from the mineon itself. Here are the prokimenon verses that we need. That's from the apostolos book, but it's also in the mineon itself. And then here are the verses for the Alleluia before the gospel, all those things that we needed, okay? And so that's why they're there. So the prokimenon, here's the prokimenon, and then the verse of the this is prokimenon V1. Here, notice here now, PSVE. Okay, that means the psalm verses that we need for Vespers at the Aposticha. Okay, this PSMA prokimenon, that means the Matins Gospel. The prokimenon for the Matins Gospel after the antiphon, right? Okay, and then here we have PSLI. This is for the prokimenon at the liturgy, for the epistle reading. See how specific those are? And they're different. We needed to be able to say all of that information somewhere. So that's where that is. And so that's where we got this. And the title of it gives us, where is that? Here it is, Psalm 18. That's where we got that from. There's the key that informs us for Psalm 18. Okay. The key for the mode, that's from Miscellanea. Okay. And the word prokimenon, that's from titles. So altogether on May 21st, We've taken a title from the titles constant file. We've taken the mode that we needed from the, miscellanea file, and then the specific title of, meaning which psalm is the prokimenon from, is from that menon verses. Okay, that was that. And then we have the epistle, it's the prokimenon itself. And again, let's go down to May 21st. And so we need to find where it says his proclamation went forth into all the earth, and another line, verse, the heavens declare the glory of God. And that's right here, okay? So they're going back to that same file we were, there's his proclamation went into all the earth. Here we have miscellanea, we have the word verse from the miscellanea constants with the BNR, that means bold and red. Okay, that's the class that will end up in the style sheet. And then here the words, the heavens declare the glory of God. And again, because we have the version, what is that called? Version tag or whatever? What would we call that?
It's the, well, I call them directives, but
that's why you see SAAS after both of them. And, if I wanted to be, as a publisher now, you may say, I really don't need to put it on both, both the prokimenon and the verse. So I could come through and just, I could remove it from the first one and only leave it on the second one. And then, in the DCS itself, his proclamation went forth into all the earth, it would not say SAAS after. I mean, it seems like redundant, doesn't it? But so that's just clean, if whatever you want to do as a publisher. Okay. All right, and we're almost done. So we just did that, and that's the section called prokimenon. Okay. And then the section called lesson. We have the deacons, we have actor, deacon. In the DCS, we have deacon. We have the deacon say wisdom. And then we have the reader say the title. The reading is from the Acts of the Apostles. We saw where that was from, right? And then we have the deacon say, let us be attentive. And then we have the actor reader. And now we have here the lesson itself. And so we'll go back to that file where it was the lesson. And May 21st. Okay, so these two lines are the lesson itself. And it's two lines because the first line is Acts 26, 1, 12 through 20. That has to be somewhere. And then the actual lesson itself is this here. And so they're both in the same file. So let's go to that lectionary file again. So here is the chap verse. Okay, that's where it says, actually, first we get the name of the book, Acts, and then the chapter and verse number. And then the actual reading is there. So let's see, where is that? We see chap verse, here it is. In order to get the chap verse, we have to have the book, the abbreviation of the book name. And then the next key is the chapter and verse, the numbers in, and if you want those in parentheses, you have to go through and, put parentheses around them either in the Aries file, itself, or in the template. And then under that is the key with the actual reading in those days. King of Great. All right. So that is that. And all that was this. And that was here.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah.
So I guess next week we should cover the gospel.
It's very similar, but it's very similar. Similar,
Okay.
similar structure. Yeah.
Okay. So you don't
Okay.
think we need to go over it? Okay.
Oh, we can, because you need to know what's in the library, right? We'll just click through it,
Mhm.
but I won't have to.
I'm finding this very helpful, Father Seraphim.
Okay.
It's just the more I see how all of this works together, the more it, solidifies.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Everything that you see on the page or on the website has to be somewhere in the library and has to be somewhere on a template, and it's usually inserted, somewhere in a template that actually points to, the library, the actual string of it, Um, and so that's what we're seeing. You know, it might have been easier just to type it out, but
No, no,
trust,
no, but Father Seraphim,
trust me, it's not.
but when it gets brought into new languages, that's the beauty of this. That
Well, because of this program that I wrote, I mean, yeah, I mean, one thing is typing it all out. Okay, a secretary maybe would do that. We're not going to do that. The other is like copying and pasting, from one year or one day to another. And that's what I used to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But then by having it sort of programmatically happen, the once I did that, now every year it's a piece of cake. I don't have to copy it from anywhere. I don't have to paste it from anywhere. And this line, epistle mineon, I mean, is everywhere in a template. It's just going to go look for it. Now, in the background, however, we had to indicate which days of the year have a Mineron entry. And so what's going to happen is when there's a new saint, for example, I have much like, here we have the dates, right? This is for the Mineon. There's also another one. Here's the list, Amialt 1, same three sections, right? But now this is for the dates that, have those other saints, like Saint December 2nd to Saint Porphyrios, and November 22nd is Saint Jacobo Savevia, September 17th is Saint Sophia. So, all these are the saints that are called Amialt 1, and they have that's how we would call those. And then so those, as new saints are added or new saints are created or new services are added, that aren't the real Manon, then someone has to go in and add those, to this list. You see? All right. That's it for today.